these guys, these 4 guys who started it, and look at who started it, okay? Adil Jassawala, Geev Patel, Arvind Krishna Mehrotra, and Arun Kolatkar. These are 4 guys who are sitting on the first committee. Their decision is they will not publish a poet unless they unanimously agree on the manuscript. One poet is sitting in Allahabad. He has to be kept informed. So Adil has to write, yesterday Geev Patel and I had a bit of a kerfuffle. I threw something at Geev, into brackets, he says, and he writes, open inverted commas, I will not have this happen again. So everyone's telling these, and then in between Palash Mehrotra, who is now on the verge of producing a book about India called The Butterfly Generation, is referred to as birth. It's lovely personal history mixed in with people saying, do you think we should publish her? No, I think this is happening. There's lovely stuff. Paper prices are being discussed. Arun Kolatkar is weighing in. Anjum Hassan has written something dirty swine, but that's all right. By the time I am through Anjum Hassan, people will say, who? But anyway, no, why am I saying this? Cut this out. I'll rephrase my answer. Yes, Anjum Hassan has written something, yes.
Rephrase.
No, okay. Here's a magazine article, yeah? Now, and I started with the idea that this would be a book about clearinghouse, okay? About how 4 poets got together and rewrote the history of Indian poetry in English. Have you ever seen these books? Their size is incredibly beautiful. Each cover is a work of art. Okay? Arun Kolatkar's covers again. Now genius, you see. Okay? Geev Patel says, I don't want anything on my cover. Why? Because Nissim Ezekiel says if you put any picture on a book of poetry, it's not taken seriously. Why? Because Faber and Faber never put any pictures on their poetry books at the time, so no one did. So Geev Patel comes and tells Arun Kolatkar this. So Arun Kolatkar goes very quiet and says, well, okay then. And you can have your book the way you want it. You design it. And stops paying any attention to Geev. Geev at this point, remember, is working in Sanjan, okay, among the farmers and peasants where he has decided that he will, spend some of his life, etc. He's having no fun at all. All the rest are saying, now what paper shall we use here? And oh, look at this sample and whatnot. And Arun is saying, I'm not interested in Geev's book. So Geev goes back to Arun and says, no, please, okay, I think I'll have a picture in my book. So Arun says, show me your manuscript, I'll take a look. Arun's manuscript vanishes. Okay? And this is before internet, before you could make multiple copies. It's one typescript. It is given to a small magazine in Pune. They lose it. The entire Jezuri vanishes. It's like, and then he reconstructs it. So, in some ways this is Tukaram's Abhangs coming back to life. And actually as if the gods who are recognizing that this atheist has produced one of the most powerful religious tracts ever in Jezuri, in this, this beautiful journey which starts cinematically over a priest watching like a cat as the bus comes up, disbursing its spray of pilgrims. Samosas, yeah. That the gods wanted this book reconstructed. So I thought it's just absolutely fascinating, and this would be enough to be a book. Then of course you start working on it, you realize that any art form cannot exist just as an art form, nor can it be written about as an art form. You have to know there are many people who have not had samosas yet. And there is no Jesus to divide them up into among the multitudes. So, you think, what were these poets looking at? What was the art scene like at this time? How was modernism playing out when Sabawala had his first shows? You know how Sabawala has his first shows? At the Jahangir Art Gallery with he and Shireen pinning up the paintings themselves. Not at Jahangir Art Gallery, at the Taj. There were no art galleries. So it's just, then you think, but there's music as well. And the Bhulavai Desai Institute plays a role. And there's the, the three sisters and the two, and their little soirees. What is the cultural life of this city like at the time that it breeds these poets? And before anyone gets carried away with the claims of Delhi, just go look at the history of Indian poetry in English. It's a Bombay history. Go look at 60 poets. Jeet Thayil's 60 poets. About 25 of those poets out of 60 come from Bombay or lived in Bombay during a very productive patch of their lives. So, what is it that this atomized, anomic, acultural city that tramples on people and tramples on art and ye takton, ye tajon, samajon ki duniya, that kind of feeling that almost all artists have for the city. What is it that produces these hundreds of thousands of writers, scrambling out of the thing? It must be something about the city. So I can't write about Clearinghouse unless I write about the city. And if I write about the city, then I have to write about its cultural life. If I have to write about its cultural life, I have to know the sports scenes that were happening. I have to know why muscle posing stopped happening in Pune. There was statue posing, where young men of very nice physique in very, very small little takas would do the disco bobulus, the thinker and whatnot, and hordes of Parsi women and men would come and watch. It's a lovely moment. I mean, it's kind of art plus porn in some kind of happy way. Yeah, in Pune. Stops happening suddenly. I think everyone gets dirty pictures printed. And so, this book, which has started out as kind of like a bunch of letters, has suddenly grown into 30 years of the history of Bombay's cultural life. And it is almost incredibly improbable to do because this is not a monolingual city. And there is coming and going between the other languages and English. Giv Patel, Adil Jasawala, for instance, calls himself not a native English language speaker. Okay, and when he said that to me at the last interview, I thought, good God, I would never have guessed, I would never have thought it even. Not because of any way in which Adil speaks or anything, but simply because one assumes that every Parsi around one speaks English at home, but no, his mother spoke to them in Gujarati. So they grew up speaking Gujarati, and only when he went to Cathedral and John Connon did he start studying English. Okay, so suddenly you're seeing him in a different light. So now, where is the Gujarati rhythms in Missing Person and in Land's End? Arun Kolatkar is one of those obvious, polysemic figures. He fits into English and he fits into Marathi. And when you read his Marathi, there's Hindi in it. There's that workers, that I went and I said, "Mere ko paisa de," There's a lovely poem about a worker going to ask the boss for money. It is, however much you try to say, no, you cannot inhabit that subaltern perspective, this is one example. It's not mimicry. Like very Indian poetry in English by Nissim is often mimicry, except for Soap, which is a lovely poem, which because it has moments of pathos, just jumps out of its own pretense and its own. Here he's got it right. Okay. Now, how do I know Marathi? What is Mallika Amar Sheikh's father Amar Sheikh doing in Shanta Gokhale's life? Suddenly the project has become so huge and so immense that I had to take a break and come to Goa for 10 days and not think about it. And of course here I am thinking about it as well. I don't know how to tell people that I will interview you for 25 hours and then I will have 2 lines of what you say in my book. People really get really annoyed with that. I do. 1 hour I talked to on the phone and then she wrote 3 lines in her piece. But that's what I'm working on right now. I'm at the point at which I don't know if I'll ever finish this book. So I better start other things now. Questions? Or we can go home. No, it's time. 6:05.
What about your journalism? You used to write columns.
Oh Lord, yeah. Journalism. When I started journalism, they used to pay 50 paise a word. Okay? Now they pay 3 rupees a word.
Which paper?
Hindustan Times and what, not the big mainstream papers. Now, but going by inflation, I was being paid better when I was being paid 50 paise a word 24 years ago than I'm being paid today at 4 rupees a word. So now my rule is when anyone brings up paise, I want 60 rupees a word.
6 rupees.
60.
And they pay?
No, they don't. But someone has to say it, no?
Just say I want 5,000 or 10,000 and
No, I don't want. I want per word. बस मेरे को चाहिए 60 rupees a word चाहिए. I have done 24 years मेहनत. अभी देना पड़ेगा तेरे को, नहीं तो जा किसी और से. Go there, बाजार में बहुत सारा रावस है, मेरा रावस उसका रावस, देख फर्क. मेरा रावस सफेद पानी का रावस,
So you stopped
उसका
journalism?
रावस काला बच्ची का काला
You
पानी का
stopped
रावस.
journalism? Have you stopped?
Okay, how does it work then? So, someone brings up and says from some dirty magazine like Vogue, okay? They will pay,
Don't say that here.
dirty magazine like Vogue. They will pay $24,000 to photographers. Vogue.
What?
BOGUE will pay like $20,000 to photographers. When the writer comes and says, "Na, abhi mere ko bhi paisa de na, bandana, mere ko bhi paisa de," then they say, no, 4 rupees a word, bahut zyada. Oh, we'll give you 3 rupees 50 paise a word.
3 rupees or $3?
3 rupees 50 paise, rupees. R with one cut like that. S with 2 lines like that. So I have decided that on behalf of my community, I will raise the stakes. So once in a while, little bit upset, they will come back and they say, we don't want a 1,000-word piece now. Now we want a 500-word piece, and we will pay you so much. But at least the paradigm is shifting a little. This means I write very little, unless I truly excited about the cause. Then I will write about it. So when you see me writing, it's because I really want to write about the cause. Most of the time, I don't write because they're not going to pay. And my sister has 6th pay commission now. So I will live on that. On your taxes.
You still write for the Statesman?
No, I don't write for the Statesman because at one point I really enjoyed writing for the Statesman because Mr. Irani rang me up and said, "You must write a column." So I said, "On what?" He said, "On anything." I thought, now I like you. I like this idea that I can write about anything I want. So I wrote about anything I wanted. Then you didn't pay me. Then I wrote a letter saying you didn't pay me. Then he was not paying PPF for his employees. The PF had not been filed, which is a criminal offence. Mr. Irani was going to go to jail. So I thought I better cut out because he'll have to pay the PF first, then he'll have to pay all the employees. When am I going to get paid? I said, okay, that doesn't matter. So I stopped writing for Statesman. Though I enjoyed it, and I got a lot of very, sort of very disaffected Bengali youth would write to me, "I'm Ornob and I think you rock. We just take down society." Yeah, man, go.
It's going very bad. Standard is going
Yeah. I said they're broke.
They broke, and Obik Babu is smiling happily over Mr. Irani's failing paper. Anyway, I feel all of us as writers, we undervalue our craft, we undervalue what we do, and any attempt to unionize us has failed. Parag Trivedi was a freelance journalist who tried to unionize journalists and bring them together. Says, ask for a certain amount, at least, cut off, keep it going, keep raising it every year, renegotiate. What would happen basically is that you would, you see there are all kinds of ways of subverting this system, right? Like, the editor in charge will say, "Oh, you want $20 a word? Oh, but we are sending people on a junket next week to France. We thought we'd send you, but if you're taking $20 a word, then we can't send you." Nah? They say, okay, maybe not this time then. Just there are ways of making sure that you keep being hungry. Everyone tells us. When the internet was launched, they said content is king. But we were paid like paupers anyway. Because all that you do is you keep feeding I was at Bukaru. No, I was at the Jaipur Literary Festival, and they decided to have a meeting of kiddie writers for children and publishers. So all the publishers sitting around saying, "You guys must write." So I said, "You tell me any one of you publishers who gets a salary less than 1 lakh a month. They'll all take home a salary of more than 1 lakh a month. But every writer in this room has been paid 20,000 rupees as an advance against royalties for the books that they spent a year on. ये कहाँ का इंसाफ है?"
Only 20,000.
That's your standard. I mean, okay, someone gets 23,000 rupees, and तू बहुत अच्छा लगता है मेरे को, तू 30,000 ले. But it's against royalties, remember. Your royalties are cut, and when you cover 30,000, then they start paying you royalties. So it's not like a manuscript fee, like ये ले पैसा इतना अच्छा book लिखा दे. It's not like that. So I would say self-publish. Really self-publish. The reason why people are reluctant to self-publish, there are two reasons. One is there is Mata Fodi. Okay? There is solid Mata Fodi in it. Yeah? And some people don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. So I don't self-publish because I really don't get turned on by different kinds of paper and all, as Marilyn does. Okay? Shameen does. So I'm not bothered. I just cut that out of my head. Self-publishing gets a bad rap because many people who do it produce really bad books, right? They get rejected by everybody in the publishing industry and then they publish it themselves. So if you self-publish, people say, it must be a bad book. We have to break this. We have to break this notion and the only way to break it is by reminding ourselves Walt Whitman published himself. Okay? Nissim Ezekiel paid for his own books. Geet Patel paid for his own books. Adil Jassawala paid for his own books. Okay? They paid and they brought out books of really substantial worth. If your book is of substantial worth, trust it enough, publish it yourself, and you'll see that you will probably make a lot more money than if you went to a mainstream publisher. Trust me. Sorry?
Very hard to say.
To market the book is very difficult.
No, see, this is the point.
Market
Self-publishing requires of the author things that authors should not do. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to sit in a corner and write. We're supposed to be the spinner of tales, the teller of yarns. We're supposed to be the collector of information, the disseminator of knowledge, whatever you want. We are supposed to be all that. But when you self-publish, you're supposed to be printer, you're supposed to be publisher, you're supposed to be marketing expert, you're supposed to be cashier, you're supposed to be accountant, you're supposed to be everything for the book. You're supposed to tweak, you're supposed to bleep, you're supposed to Facebook, you're supposed to put.
Why you have very interesting model with Rico?
Yeah, so Rico's model is, I think one of the most interesting. And print on demand is coming. Many things are coming that will help, I think, put books out where people will get them, but writers will benefit. And we need to start thinking about how writing can be made into a viable profession. Every time, I talk to young poets, I say, keep the day job. Okay? Why? Why we are continually downgrading our own art by saying, no, you can't survive. No, you can't survive. I feel it, with all the jokes about my sister supporting me, which she does, but in general, I could support myself. You just have to keep scaling down. You have to keep saying to yourself, okay, when I see a new book that I want, I have to ask myself, who would buy this book? Which of my friends is likely to have bought this book? I will borrow it from that person. And likely enough, that person will not even read the book. All people who buy books buy more than they actually read. So my duty in life, I believe, is to take all the orphaned cinema, the orphaned books from people's shelves and give them their life by reading them. I tear more cellophane off DVD films than any other person in the world. Because all my friends buy them and I watch them. Then I go back and I say, you should watch this. Or don't bother. They're very happy when you say don't bother. You think they'll be disappointed that they just spent their money on so much. 799 rupees. And if you want films to sell, you cannot sell them at 799. I'm telling any publisher, DVD person who's watching. Anyway, I'm saying you have to sort of scale down your wants and you can actually manage to live. You can't do Waldens, but you can live. Questions?
This is one example. This is
Your book, you brought it out.
and this is in the fourth children.
See,
Adamant
The
upon
confidence, I have the material. Let me see how people accept it and somebody say, no, I'm not.
now tell us, did you have to do a lot of Mata Fodi for it?
Not much. It's a struggle.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. It's a struggle, you have to prepare yourself
It
for
will
this.
take some time. I've started only 3-4 years now. The second book is also, in fact, this book on Goa has just
Ah,
written
that's the
like
one that-
2,000 copies.
Go for it.
2,000 copies were sold
Did you
and-
make a little profit? Huh.
I'm actually,
There you are. If he can do a coffee table color book and make money on it, you can do it for poetry. You can do it for prose. You can do it for fiction. You can do it.
I just showed you an example
Yeah.
of the self-publishing.
Totally.
I don't know. You have to really run after. I had no time to run after the publishers, and I'm from Calcutta. You have to go to Delhi, minimum Delhi, and then you don't meet the person. It's very difficult to reach that person. Who will take the decision? So what do we do? What? So then I said, okay, fine. People are investing here and then. Let me invest.
Okay, here's
So my
another
mutual
little
fund,
secret.
Let me do it. And
I am consulting editor for the Nonce, right? For at the present moment. Tomorrow it may go. Day after it may go. But I am at present consulting editor with Penguin. You have a manuscript you think should be with Penguin, write to me and send me 2 chapters, send me the whole manuscript, whatever you trust me with. I'll give you a brutally frank opinion. Everything. Everything. Just send it in and I'll take a look. I'll pass it. I can't promise. I give consulting editors Trishankus. We are sort of, to use Rahul's metaphor, we are na ghar ka na ghat ka. In the sense we do, you know, if you meet, say, someone who is in the publishing industry and he says, great book, we'd like to do it, means you're in. Consulting editor says, hey, lovely, I like it, let's try, means I am going to go and say, bang, ek book karna, acha book ke, please na dekhna. And then maybe they will and maybe they won't. Generally it's okay. I mean, they've generally accepted most of my recommendations. But, you know, tomorrow everything may change. So if you have a book that you think wants to be with Penguin, send it to me. You have a poetry book, they do 2 books of poetry every year. Okay? Their poetry list is covered up to 2016. They have,
Oh my God.
yeah, they have books lined up till 2016. But 2017 is open. And very often people drop out. For instance, Ranjit's Hoskote's book I Lalla has just come out. It's a great work, but it has been scheduled at least 9 years running. Then it's not gone in and another book has gone in. So next year's book may be something that is scheduled and may not come in. So yours has a chance. Pop it in here. HarperCollins also does 2 books of poetry here. Random House does none. Because they see, this
They
is the
don't
thing.
sell.
Yeah. No, that poetry eventually always poetry eventually always sells. But it sells slowly. That's the problem. Then what you need to do is you need to die. As soon as you die, your book starts selling. This is the Pyasa model, na? But Arun Kolatkar by side. Mar gaya sala. Books bhi come. 7 cities claimed Homer dead, through which the living Homer begged his bread. Yeah? Questions?
Also, a lot of authors writers who self-publish, they quote a pre-publishing rate. If a book is going to cost,
They have also
1,000,
need, they have to buy paper and all,
so
they have
it's
to put
cheaper
some
for
money.
us to buy a pre-publishing rate, which is about half the rate.
I think it's a great idea. All those are very
And
good
few,
ideas,
few
and there are ways in which I think we can start shaking up the industry a little and loosening the big people's hold on us, you know. And I think industry has always been a bit skeptical of odd books. Like for instance, say the book that Shamin and David did was about street hawkers and street sounds, and Shamin's poetry put together with interesting typography on interesting paper, laid out in different ways as a coffee table book. I would imagine that a publisher, you know, a mainstream publisher would have thought, now how are we going to sell it? It's only a Bombay book, and these people want this shiny paper here, and they want other paper there. Ye bahut hai. I mean, and you're not going to then get the book you want. Instead, they took the decision, they did it themselves, and came out on top. It's sold out. Made them a small amount of money, they say. So, you know, it's not like you're going in ghata, and you've got the book that you want, the way you want it.
Total control.
Yeah, you have control. You want a big picture, you want a big picture. You want saturated ink, you want saturated ink. You rock. My Goa Reflected in Water, have you noticed it was under inked, the first series? It was under inked. So, you know, even the print is so fine you can't see it. Then he said, shall we scrap the lot? I said, no, we don't scrap the lot because it's still dead trees, no? So many trees died, but it's not fair. No? Sorry?
What do you mean by a bad book?
A bad book.
You said when you're publishing, you said everyone who thinks it's a bad book. How do you judge it?
See, at some level, all are God's creatures. No? But there is also Bipasha Basu.
Who was caught and released.
No, but I'm saying there is Bipasha Basu, and then there is me.
Usually
No, and there are so there are no bad books in that sense, right? And at the end of the day, there are books, okay, that I will keep. Okay, so see, I'm a Bombay person. I have a tiny flat, meaning it would fit in this alley. Okay, so now if a book earns its place on my shelves, it's a keeper. It means I will reread it. Then there is a book I will like, but I will not keep. Then there are books that I will just throw out. The books that I start reading and I will not. So a bad book is not a bad book universally. A bad book is a book that did not work for me. That's how I describe a bad book. I'll tell you what a bad book is in my opinion. And I have several bad books that I have kept even. Manohar Malgamkar's Shalimar is a terrible book. It's written so badly it's not funny, but he got lots of money for it. Why not? K. Abbas's Bobby is a terrible book, but he got money for it. Why not? You have to live, also.
So how do you judge a bad book? Like if you do the bad at that particular initial stage?
You can't. This is the point. That is why you are also, why readers groups are really effective things. If you can trust that a whole okay, my favorite story is is Plato and the ship in trouble, right? Plato asks a whole bunch of his interlocutors, who are generally straight men, right? They give the answer that he wants. He says, you're in a boat, okay? The boat is going through really stormy seas. At that point, you have two choices. One, you can ask the man who has been trained in navigation, trained in the arts of ruling the boat, of governing a boat. You can ask him to run the boat. Or you can say to the whole rabble of uneducated, illiterate, smelling sailors, you can say, y'all vote. And then we'll decide how to run this boat, okay? What will you do? So naturally all the interlocutors, what will they say? Navigator. And you choose the navigator who's been trained. Now cut to the present. James Surowiecki, The Wisdom of Crowds. It's a non-fiction book where he proves again and again that a heterogeneous bunch of people acting in concert in making decisions often outguesses experts. Now it is up to you to make sure that your group of readers, your group of writers whom you gather together is a heterogeneous group. Their opinion will help you. Their opinion will outguess the expert who is sitting here and saying good book, bad book in a magisterial fashion that does not work. Right? But it has to be heterogeneous. It has to have some cynics, it has to have some skeptics, it has to have some softies, it has to have some people who love everything that has been written, there has to be some people who are, who hate everything that has been written, it has to have some outsiders, it has to have some other language speakers, it has to have some people with bushy dadi, it has to have some people completely clean shaven. Everyone comes together. No, these are ways in which you can say Muslim, Hindu, Bhaile, all those words that you don't want to use, which I have now used. So, you bring all these people together and you read to them, and their responses should help you govern and decide whether you're on the right track or not. Now, other than that, there sometimes will be the book that is so startling, the writing that is so completely odd that no one will recognize it. What do you think happened when Howl was read out the first time? What do you think happened when someone started reading The Wasteland? The first reader other than T.S. Eliot. How did they recognize the magisterium of what there was on the page? Or did they? Or did they say, he's dark, raving lunatic. This isn't poetry at all. This starts in Greek. And not only Greek, but Greek written in the Greek language. Delta, theta, theta, p. How is that recognized? That risk is there. That you may be the creator of this magnificent work that no one can recognize. But then you have to be also, then you are the magnificent creator of that work, so you will live with it. Remember, Kafka asked his literary executor, Max Brod, to burn everything. Burn everything, he said. Max Brod didn't. Chose to ignore the direct orders of the person whose executor he was, and saved the castle for us, and saved the trial for us. But he had to recognize what even Kafka did not recognize, that they were magnificent works. Max Brod is one of the unknown heroes of literary history. And your writers group will often be the unknown heroes of your literary history. Mine was the Poetry Circle. Bunch of bizarre bananas as ever there was one. Abhay was one. Rahul came to meetings and sat in the back saying, I'm not a poet, I'm not a poet. And anytime anyone asked him a question. Shamian came once in a while. Adil Jassawala came. Nissim Ezekiel was there, Raj Rao was there, Menka Shivdasani was there, Anil Sari, who wrote nasty things about Indian poetry in English, but read out Indian poetry in English, came. You know, Derek Antau came, Devariya came, my bloodless blood curdles in my blood, beautiful ghazal he read out once. Everybody came, and because it was a heterogeneous group, the sense of a community that there was there, it was unparalleled in the history of Indian poetry in English. And therefore I think the poetry circle needs to have something written about it. I'm not going to. I'm doing clearinghouse that I'm pushing off. I'm not doing any more cultural history. Anyway, everyone will slam me and say I'm illiterate and I did not read this book and I did not read this famous thing and I did not read that essay that they wrote in 1973 in Journal of Arts and Ideas.
I'm just wondering if
Yeah.
you might have a comment or two concerning distribution. Like, I'm basically a consumer.